Living in a community is living the good life.
Belonging. You don't have to be born into a community or even live there for a long time, but it means you feel that you belong. And I think you feel you belong by how people are kind and look out for each other and care for each other.
Community, as far as I'm concerned, is where I feel connected to the people first and foremost, to the place, to the things that I need to live my life alongside my family. I think
community isn't a place necessarily, it is a feeling.
Community to me, I think there's two key words: people and place. It's really about understanding the people who are your neighbours, who you live with, and it's about together understanding what that place means and what you can do for it, not what it can do for you.
A meeting of needs. It's a meeting of our professional needs and obligations, but also our very human needs.
When I think about community, I think about where I live. I think about community in terms of the assets that the community has, so a community hall, the natural environment that surrounds us as well, the green spaces, the coastal areas and so on. And then the people who live here, who are neighbours and friends and people that you bump into.
Community to me is about people. People are the heart of communities, be it residents, be it employers, be it service providers.
It's family, it's friends, it's kind of where I belong, not just physically, but I guess spiritually, psychologically. And for the organisation, Howell Var as an organisation, I think community is a fundamental building block of people's health and well-being. And it's actually where we as an organisation want to place ourselves. How do we help our communities to be the best they can be? Because we know the evidence shows it's strong communities that makes the most difference to people's health and well-being. So we're on a mission to put community really at the heart of what we do as an NHS organisation.
Pembrokeshire County Council exists to serve the community. But when we talk about community, it can mean different things to different people. From an organisational perspective, the community is everyone in Pembrokeshire. But in reality, there are many different communities in Pembrokeshire. The Welsh-speaking community, the farming community, the Saundersfoot community. Different groups want different things and have different needs. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to involve communities in projects and services, to find out what people need rather than assuming we know. I know the services that I'm privileged to manage are important to people. Culture and leisure enriches our lives and plays an important part in bringing communities together. And when we come together, we quickly realise we're not so different from each other. So when you ask me, what does community mean to me? The community is the people I work for. They're the reason I'm here.
Town and community councils are at the heart of local democracy. They're the lowest level of democracy, and therefore they're the closest to our communities and the granular detail of what's going on in communities.
From a professional and a personal perspective, community is about where I and the organisation can contribute to things, where we can play a part, where we can offer the hand of friendship, where we can offer conversation and support to people who need it.
As chair of Wales Council for Voluntary Action, community is at the heart of our work. It is about a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of identity. It's about the means by which people and individuals can improve their own individual well-being by being connected and having a sense of purpose. It's about voluntary action. It's about giving and being connected to other people in a community that has a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and a sense of identity.
So there are communities of place and there are communities of interest, and both are important.
As a community connector within PAVS, the organisation, it's very much about working in communities, very much about supporting people, looking for the strengths in communities, connecting people, and hopefully by doing that, showing people what the strengths are in communities. By pulling together, they actually can make change, and small changes can make a big difference.
Small businesses here in Pembrokeshire are the backbone of many of our communities. Over 74% of businesses here in Pembrokeshire employ less than 5 people. So we need to make sure that our communities are very much looked at for the future. They're acknowledged as diverse, but they're also acknowledged as vibrant. And that's what communities are to me.
There's something comforting about community. It's where we live, it's where we experience our lives. It gives us safety and community. It gives us variety and stimulus, the people around us and the opportunities. It gives us significance, and particularly for me and the workforce within the health board, we're there to serve our community. We're there to support the health and well-being and good outcomes and experience of our community. So it brings us each individually and collectively a sense of significance. Community is also about connection and love. It's where our family and our friends are. It's where we experience those connections. And I think there's a sense of connection and love in how we operate and what we do. I think most people come into health because they've got that commitment and need for connection. It gives us growth. It gives us opportunities for learning. There's a constant variety and scope there. And it enables us to satisfy our need for contribution. And I think that's an absolute critical one for me personally. It's a critical one for the health board and all of the colleagues I've got the pleasure of working with. It's also embodied in the conversations that we're having about community and what we want to grow and build collectively.
For us in the NHS, we are really a service where people tend to come to when they're ill, not so much a health service. And for us, I believe that a community keeps people healthy by looking after them, by enabling them to stay home, by passing a few minutes of the day so that loneliness isn't as endemic as it could be.
The National Park is a community of communities. We have very strong local communities, towns and villages that make up the National Park, and that is the basis for a lot of excellent work, both in voluntary terms, but also across the whole spectrum of activity. But equally as important, the National Park includes a number of communities of interest. The authority owns very little land, and therefore we work very closely with landowners that are a very strong community. There are community of interest in terms of people enjoying the national park, but also some key industries such as the tourism sector. So the national park would not exist without its communities, and the communities are varied, contribute in different ways, and are a key part of what's special about the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park.
We need to work together to make our world and our community within that a much better place to live. And I think that's all about us being connected to that endeavour, to grow, to improve, to enjoy.
We're very passionate about working in partnership. Our little communities on their own don't work in isolation. Within the community, there's so much resource and capacity. That might be community associations, whether it be rugby clubs, football clubs, youth clubs. But then on a larger scale, there's so many opportunities to work with our partners in the third sector and charities, and then local authorities and health board, for example.
Community for me is all about place, where I feel I belong. And that's really to do with people and relationships. Neighbourliness and people looking out for each other, offering help and support when needed. It's also about people of all ages getting on well and having enjoyable and worthwhile things to do. It's where you feel safe and well. That's what communities are about.
Communities do not stand still.
Communities coming together can do so much to respond to issues outside of the pandemic. So we really would like to encourage people to continue to work together with support from us, from Planet, from partners, coming together to change the way that we think about communities and what's important, and how we can make use of the fantastic assets in our communities, which do include the skills of the people who live in those communities, how we can make the most of what we've got to offer for the benefit of each and every one of us who lives in Pembrokeshire.